critical thinkers and lifelong learners. Instead of asking what else should we test on an SAT, we should probably really be asking why we've not yet done away with such standardized tests instead.
Colleges say they recognize the SAT and consider the SAT less and less in these years of very complicated college admissions. What do you want to see on the SAT? The number is 8778-MY-TAKE, or tweet us at The Takeaway.
The Takeaway is supported by TIAA. Whether it's investing, advice, banking, or retirement, TIAA is committed to helping those who do good do well. Learn more at TIAA.org.
WNYC salutes the arts. Join us in supporting cultural organizations, including Voices of Gotham, a nonprofit men's a cappella chorus that celebrates barbershop harmony through musical excellence and community, and Brooklyn Children's Theater, an organization that provides a nurturing environment for musical theater to be performed for children by children from all socioeconomic backgrounds. For more information about the Support the Arts program, visit wnyc.org/star. WNYC receives support from the Art on Paper Fair, now through March 6th, Pier 36 in Manhattan, featuring over 75 national and international galleries and a program of public installations. More information at thepaperfair.com. WNYC and Radio Love Fest is supported by Delta Airlines, providing service to more than 110 worldwide destinations from LaGuardia and JFK combined. More information at delta.com.
You're listening to The Takeaway on 93.9 FM and WNYC.org.
You're listening to The Takeaway from WNYC and PRI Public Radio International, in collaboration with the New York Times and WGBH Boston Public Radio.
This 2016 election is about those voters we just heard from. Getting the nomination, though, is about delegates. On the Democratic side, Clinton has won 596 delegates compared to Bernie Sanders' 407. That's without counting the 457 superdelegates that have already pledged to vote for Clinton. That tips the scales considerably. But again, there's a lot of time left. Donald Trump on the GOP side has won 319 delegates so far. But his three remaining Republican opponents, Ted Cruz, Marco Rubio, and John Kasich, together have 361. And perhaps it's those numbers that encouraged GOP presidential nominee in 2012, Mitt Romney, to come out and characterize this week a Trump presidency as a national calamity.
Let me put it very plainly. If we Republicans choose Donald Trump as our nominee, the prospects for a safe and prosperous future are greatly diminished.
An unprecedented bashing of a candidate on the way to the nomination. Mitt Romney speaking about Donald Trump there. We reached out to Ryan Williams, a Republican strategist and former spokesman for Mitt Romney's 2012 presidential campaign. Ryan Williams, welcome to The Takeaway.
It's good to be with you.
Do you believe that the collective delegate counts of the alternative candidates to Donald Trump suggest that he's losing?
I think Trump, obviously, no matter what you think of him, and I'm certainly not a fan, I think that he's in a very commanding spot right now for the nomination. And now we're heading into a period in the nomination contest where states are going to go from proportional delegate allocation to winner-take-all. So middle of March, Donald Trump just needs to win a state by one vote to get all of the delegates. The other candidates will get no delegates. I think that's why there's a real sense of urgency right now among people in the party who dislike Trump to come forward and speak out as to why he's the wrong candidate. Once those winner-take-all states start, it's going to be very, very hard to stop him in the delegate count.
How can someone who wins the most delegates be the wrong candidate?
Well, look, right on Super Tuesday, which was this most previous election, 65% of Republicans voted against Donald Trump. And they voted against Donald Trump because he is a unique candidate in the sense that everything he says basically is a lie. In last night's debate, we saw that pretty clearly when he flip-flopped on his immigration position, which has been the cornerstone of his campaign, only to flop back after the debate was over in a statement. He's someone who has refused to distance himself from the KKK, and then when he gets called out on it, he blames it on a faulty earpiece. He's someone who retweets comments made by Benito Mussolini because he thinks they sound good. He's someone who mocks disabled reporters, makes derogatory comments about women, about Latinos.
Well, that list that you comprehensively itemized there has only served to increase his poll numbers and delegate count. Nobody seems to care about any of that stuff.
Well, I disagree with that. I do think there's a very strong movement amongst mainstream Republicans to vote against Trump. The problem, though, is that they're fractured. We're in a multi-candidate field here right now. This is not Donald Trump versus an alternative. It's Donald Trump versus three alternatives. And the anti-Trump vote, which I mentioned, 65% of voters on Super Tuesday in Republican primaries and caucuses voted against Donald Trump. They're splintered. So Trump is winning not with the majority of the vote, but with a portion of it. And he's doing a very good job of consolidating 30 to 40%, or maybe a little higher in some states, of the Republican primary electorate as he goes through these nomination contests.
But isn't this the Republican elite's fault? I mean, first of all, because they were so disillusioned by what happened in 2012, they created the system so that an early front runner gets a huge advantage. They just made the mistake of thinking that they could pick the front runner by putting Jeb Bush in there early, and it backfired on them. And the second thing is they've embraced the Tea Party in 2010 as a way of getting the Congress, getting a supermajority in the House, and now they want to distance themselves from the Tea Party. Mitt Romney says that Donald Trump is hijacking the Republican Party. The supporters of Donald Trump say, no, you rich people have hijacked the Republican Party. It's our party of whites and middle class. And that's what it is now, and get lost. That's the message.
Well, I think there's no question that some leaders in the party have let down the base of the Republican Party. There are angry voters on both sides. People are fed up with politics as usual, and I think that's why Donald Trump has done so well in these primaries. The problem is that what he's selling to people, to middle-class working American voters, is a con job, as Governor Romney said. He's someone who rails against the donor class of the party, yet he's someone who brags about buying off politicians in both parties as a member of the donor class during his career in business. So his message is appealing to these voters. The issue is that he's totally untrustworthy, and he's essentially trying to con everybody.
But in a moment where everyone believes that all politicians are liars, Trump's dishonesty is just not that big of a deal. And it's like in a room full of blind people, the man with one eye is king. You know, the argument is not about whether he's trustworthy or not. It's about his style. It's about the fact that he's an insurgent. And that's not anything these other candidates can claim to be. Would you support Donald Trump if he's the nominee?
I do not know, actually, personally. I do think the issue with Trump isn't just that he has outrageous comments, but I actually think he's potentially very dangerous. If you watch his speeches these days, they resemble that of a rally of a Latin despot or a dictator. He's really going over the edge. This is a time right now where Donald Trump should be in a commanding position for the nomination. He should be reaching out to people. He should be trying to bring in the mainstream of the party. I'd have great hesitation voting. I didn't vote for him in the primary, but I'd have to really think about it long and hard. I would not vote for Hillary Clinton. She is also untrustworthy, and would be also a very bad president. But Trump gives myself and I think many other Republican voters a lot of pause if he's the nominee.
And the question is there any way to stop him from being the nominee? And it sounds like there might not be. Ryan Williams, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Ryan Williams is a Republican strategist and former spokesman for Mitt Romney's 2012 presidential campaign. College-bound students across the country will take the SAT tomorrow morning. What do you think is missing from that test?
This is Ethan Lawless from Owatonna, Minnesota. I think basic things like social skills training and critical thinking, job interviewing, how to pay your taxes, how to make major purchases like cars and houses and how to understand those, as well as I think even gun safety, at least in the paperwork form.
Redesign the SAT at 8778-MyTake or facebook.com/thetakeaway.
Support for The Takeaway comes from Staples, offering tech services for small business owners like PC setup and repair. More at staples.com/tech services. Staples, make more happen.
Hello, it's Garrison Keillor heading for Brooklyn for Radio Love Fest at BAM. there to talk about Lake Wobegon, Minnesota, and tell some stories and, of course, sing some songs with pianist Rob Fisher and Christine DiGianardo. Meet me at BAM Saturday, March the 12th. Tickets at wnyc.org/Radio Lovefest.
WNYC is supported by the Winston Preparatory School, an individualized school for young people with learning differences, with 4 campuses throughout the tri-state region, including their new Transitions program for young adults. More at winstonprep.edu.
You're listening to The Takeaway on 93.9 FM and WNYC.org. Stay tuned for the latest news on all things considered and WNYC.
Toto? I have a feeling we're not in Kansas anymore.
What year is it? 35 years from now, you reprogrammed me to be your protector here. This time.
Now I need your help to get back to the year 1985.
Hot tub time machine.
Toto was a time traveler? That and other questions grappled with by our movie critic, Rafer Guzman, who's a film critic for Newsday, right here in the studio. Rafer, welcome.
Thanks, John.
It's great to talk to you. We've got 2 movies this weekend. Kind of a cold, miserable weekend here in New York. Good time to go out to the movies. And I don't know what to think about this. I'm kind of looking forward to it. The premise is a little sort of network meets something Reese Witherspoon might have done. Whiskey Tango Foxtrot.
Listen up. Iraq 2 is happening. The network is stretched thin. All our talent is going there. We need people, any people, to fill the void in Afghanistan. And you folks here are all the unmarried, childless personnel in this bureau. For those of you who are behind the scenes, there are opportunities to be on camera. Kim, are you going to be joining in?
The travel or the crime?
Tina Fey, of course, which is a big asset. How does this work?
Well, she plays Kim Baker, who is a journalist, desk-bound journalist who decides to shake up her life. She volunteers to go to Afghanistan and cover the war there. And this is based on Kim Barker's memoir, The Taliban Shuffle. I don't know if you recall, the New York Times, when they reviewed this book back in, I think it was 2011, said that Kim Barker describes herself as a sort of Tina Fey character. And so here she is playing the role. And yes, she is an asset. She's very good. You know, she's got the comedic chops and she's got the dramatic chops. I just think the problem with this movie is it's really a series of vignettes, little small moments, observations. We learn a little slang here and there, but there's no real story to carry us through. And I think the movie tries to put some kind of subplots on there to pull us through the film. They don't quite work. She has a romance with Martin Freeman. He plays a Scottish photojournalist. It's all a little bit lukewarm, and I don't think you learn that much about the war. I don't think you learn that much about the character of Kim Baker, really, in the end. So it's a kind of a tepid film that I think could have been really interesting.
Needed more of a cynical edge about the media?
Something to kind of tell you something that you didn't know, maybe, about that war, or that you didn't know about journalists, rather than the fact that they're over there in this war zone, feeling the adrenaline, getting drunk, sleeping around. I think we kind of know that already, and it doesn't really tell you anything new.
Americans, not the Afghans, that's for sure. The next movie, Zootopia, something completely different.
I've got 3 items on the docket. First, we need to acknowledge the elephant in the room. Francine, happy birthday. Number 2, there are some new recruits with us I should introduce, but I'm not going to because I don't care.
Animation, yes.
Animation, Disney.
Premise.
So it's called Zootopia, and this is about a mythical kingdom, land where predators and prey have all learned to coexist. Jennifer Goodwin plays the voice of Judy Hopps. She's the first rabbit on the Zootopia Police Department, and she's going to team up with a fox, one of her natural enemies, to solve a crime. This is pretty interesting in a lot of ways. It's the premise may sound a little overstretched or a little torturous there.
Well, Disney does the ecosystem.
Yes, exactly, as they have done before.
Yes.
But in this case, you've got a movie that I think is really trying to deliver a message that I think resonates today. It's a message about tolerance, about racial profiling, about political correctness, and I think it works really well. Sometimes these metaphors get a little overstretched, but it's a lot of fun. The animation's beautiful. Jason Bateman is the fox. He's great.
Rafer Guzman loved Zootopia, not so much on Whiskey Tango Foxtrot. Rafer Guzman, have a great weekend.
Thanks, John. You too.
He's a film critic for Newsday and for The Takeaway. At West Brooklyn Community High School, there is the old and the new coming together in a very familiar ritual. It's Scholastic Aptitude Test season. And while the tests are new this year to address some problems that seem to unfairly favor white suburban kids, the nerves at SAT time are as familiar as the cafeteria chairs Veronica Jersky and Alyssa Bartnick are fidgeting in.
Find a job, or if you want to take a year off, or do military. But where I previously came from, it was, no, you're applying to college, you have to apply to college, and that's it, those are our rules.
That's Alyssa. She and her friend Veronica will both be getting up early to take the SATs this weekend. Veronica knows that to get to college, all roads pass through the SATs.
It's gonna help start my life now. It's so stressful, it's so scary, but you wanna reach the highest score to make yourself look good for these colleges so they can see that, oh, I'm not just a loser or a student from an alternative high school. I'm a student, I'm a good student.
But how will the test judge them, they wonder? Will it be fair? Will their own insecurities make the test harder? Alyssa tries to predict where her weaknesses lie.
The essay's now optional. You have to pay for it. The essay is a lot harder. The question is a lot harder. It's now a rhetorical analysis. So you have to pull out from a text and you have to completely explain and analyze what the writer's doing. And a lot of kids in high school don't necessarily get to do that in a regular English class.
To get to this point has meant a lot of hard work for both of these girls, and they wonder how that will be reflected, if at all, in their test results. Veronica knows her own trend lines over the past few years are way, way up.
It was like becoming almost a high school dropout to now almost a high school graduate.
In her previous high school, Veronica was fighting all the time. Eventually, the bullying dared her to think she was better than all of this.
It was the worst 2.5 years of my life. It just became a cycle every day. I would come to class, next period I would leave. And nobody would tell me anything. Nobody would say, don't go. Nobody would say, go to class. Nobody would help me understand what I have to do. I want to go to college because I want to prove to my mom and to my family that I'm not the same girl I used to be when I went to John Dewey.
But the feeling of being academic pioneers for both of these young girls is isolating from friends and family. And cheerleading from well-intentioned loved ones only goes so far. In the end, you just have to put down your money and pick up the pencil.
Kind of broke. I didn't know what to do anymore. And I didn't have anybody that had been through the same experiences or anybody who had finished high school or gone to a high school like that or even gone to college to help me out. So it was more like I'm swimming in this big pool with people at the back telling me, well, you can do it. Like, you know where you're going. I know where I'm going. I don't necessarily know how to get there.
These girls both know that even though the test has changed, kids from other families will still have more opportunities for test tutoring and practice. It may not be fair, but Veronica says, bring it on. She and Alyssa will take their chances and are convinced that when a real person eventually gets to meet them, they will see something beyond just a number.
Don't like the SATs. I'm not a good test taker, and I never was. The Board of Education doesn't know their students. They know their students by number. Colleges look at you by number because the SAT basically is a number. You know, I would rather meet face-to-face with the college I dream of going to. This day and age, there's tons of technology, and even doing like a Skype interview or something like that, I think gives a lot more into who your student is and seeing how they interact and seeing who they are as a person rather than just looking at their test scores.
Alyssa Bartnick is a junior at West Brooklyn Community High School looking to study political science, and Veronica Jersky is a senior who dreams of becoming a dentist. Both are taking the newly redesigned SATs tomorrow.
Support for The Takeaway comes from Staples, offering tech services for small business owners like PC setup and repair. More at staples.com/tech services. Staples, make more happen.
Suzanne and Mike met when they were teenagers. That's when Mike introduced her to heroin.
I don't want to be mean, but I felt like pressured into doing it, so I did. And then I fell in love, I guess.
Then they got clean together, but not without some missteps.
And actually, I don't remember how she ended up getting started again. I mean, I'm sure I played a role in it.
I remember it.
I'm Anna Sale. Hear more at deathsexmoney.org.